Hey, what did you think of the jingle that I picked?
I liked it. I think it's a good jingle.
Do you think we could make our own?
Right now, let's do it. Bop, 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 bop.
It's Ian and Will, and they're making a podcast. They're talking about physics and also nerd things. Hey,
Bop. Nice.
that was all right. That's what we'll use. It's perfect.
That's what that'll
be
be our
better.
jingle from now on.
Wow. So, what did you think of episode 1? Did you have fun?
I had fun. Yeah.
Okay. Did it sound like how
I
you
think.
wanted? Was it received by the masses the way you expected?
Well, we did get like 3 tweets from it, so it's pretty good.
At least.
You know.
Well, it's almost incredible that we even got those 3 tweets given the Twitter account got deleted. I had to make a new one.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Actually, that's probably some errata we should list on this episode.
Oh, man.
When we
Yeah,
get to
that's
that
true.
section.
So I should pull up what the actual account is
Yeah,
again,
probably
I?
a good call.
Let me get
Probably
that
a
open
good
on my
call,
other
yeah.
screen. I got so many of these Twitter accounts now. Okay, I got it. All right. I followed as many science people as I could on it.
I noticed that.
And also TC Bear.
And, well, we all should follow TC
Everyone
Bear.
should be following TC Bear
If
on
you're not
Twitter.
following TC Bear right now, follow TC Bear on Twitter right now.
Yeah. Shout out to TC Bear.
He's like, what's that? Oh, what's its name? Hold on. Is it Gritty? Is it Gritty? Is that the one that I'm thinking of?
Gritty for the mascot for who? Gritty is a mascot.
For the Philadelphia, I think. Yeah. Philadelphia Flyers. Gritty.
Yeah, I'm not looking up Gritty. Gritty scares me.
Gritty's a scary.
I'm not looking at Gritty.
Scary man. But my point is, he's not like Gritty. He's wholesome
Yeah, and friendly.
and not from Philly.
And wears clothes.
He
Well, at least he
wears
wears a shirt. Does he
And a
wear
hat.
pants?
clothes. He wears a hat.
He wears a hat.
He wears pants.
He wears a
shorts,
shirt.
I think.
He doesn't wear no pants. He's a bear. He doesn't need pants.
He's less business formal than Yogi. Yogi wears a tie.
That is way too fancy.
But I don't think Yogi wears anything other than a tie and maybe a collar. So like,
Oh, less fancy, a little more party.
well, the tie is around his neck though. So like, I don't know.
Oh yeah,
You
it
kinda
should be around his
split the
head if
difference.
it's really party time.
That's what I'm saying. What's the difference? I think.
True. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 2 of Reference Frames, Physics Through Popular Culture. If you missed the intro in episode 1, this is a podcast where we seek to educate, to learn, to teach, to understand physics by putting them in the frame of easily recognizable images that you may have seen on your TV, on a movie theater screen, on your iPod video screen from 2011, or maybe anywhere else. The theater of your own mind.
In your feed.
The what?
In your feed.
In the feed, if you will. My name is Ian. I play the role here of showrunner, co-host, and audience liaison. I'll ask the questions that I think the audience would want to ask to my
The
good friend and
hard-hitting-
co-host, Mr. Will.
Mm-hmm. That's my name, Mr. Will.
Future
Not-
Dr. Will.
Well, hopefully.
But before we move right into that, I think we need to take a trip to the
Correction zone.
to the correction zone. So
correction zone.
do not pass go. Go directly to the correction zone. Wee, wee, wee. So
We're about science here.
we're about science and we're about fixing the mistakes that we, or more importantly, Will made in the last episode. Actually, I want to own up to mine first, which is the Twitter account. Correction zone item number 1. The Twitter account is not whatever I said it was. I don't even remember anymore.
I think it's Reference Frames Podcast.
At Reference Frames Podcast. Unfortunately, I didn't have any activity on that account, so Twitter banished it to the nether realm or whatever. Now our podcast is at Podcast Frames, because that was the best thing I could get. So please tweet your physics-based questions or any questions or comments or thoughts at Podcast Frames. Thank you.
And hopefully we don't get sued by any like company that tries to sell like glasses frames and want to make a podcast about that, because
I'd
kinda
sell
still
out.
there.
I'd sell our Twitter account for that.
yeah, fair. We can just make another one. That's true.
They're free.
We have this section. We could just make a new one. So a third Twitter account.
All right, take us to correction number 2.
Oh yeah. So correction number 2. So last week, I didn't use the word incorrectly. I did use the word correctly. So when we were talking about the pirates in Pirates of the Caribbean, I said they were scurrilous scalawags, and I gave the definition as being foul-mouthed and evil, which is true. That is the definition of scurrilous. But then I said, and I want to be clear, I did say I'm not 100% sure on this because I wasn't at the time. It felt wrong at the moment, and it was wrong. The etymology was not that of a poor person, as I jokingly said. What I was thinking of instead there was the word churlish, which is another delightful insult to use. Churlish does come etymologically from like an old English word for like a poor peasant or like a common folk. Scurrilous does not. So apologies there. The definition was correct. Etymology was not. So
I know there were a lot of people out there that were raging about that,
clamoring for corrections because I don't want to be the guy who told you wrong stuff. Not about physics, not about language, not about nothing.
And now you're only the guy that told them the wrong thing about language if they only listened to episode 1.
Which, I mean, if they didn't get hooked on that one, what are we doing?
Then we're not going to get them. That's just the way it goes. All right. We've made it. We're out of correction zone. Only 2 corrections. That's our high score.
Yeah, we'll try to get past that next time.
Yeah, perfect. So I'll go for as many corrections as we can. Great. Should we get into the meat of it?
Yeah.
So I'll reiterate this part for the because it is only indeed the second episode. When we leave corrections corner, we go into Will's mind physics section where he channels his inner DM and reads for us, takes us through a narrative adventure experience that features some kind of physics principle that we're going to then expand upon throughout the rest of the episode. So that is what is coming up here. Please, Will, take it away.
Yeah, for sure. One note before we get into it, this is not from a movie or a TV show. It's actually from the very recent past, from the Olympics in Tokyo. So there's the setting. All right. Just after 7 p.m., August 1st, 2021. It's the 9th day of the 2020 Summer Olympics in Tokyo. 2 top competitors vie for the gold medal in the high jump competition. Mutaz Essa Barshim, high jumper from Qatar, claimed bronze in 2012 and silver in 2016. Gold in Tokyo would complete the set. Italian Gianmarco Tamberi won gold at the 2016 World Indoor Championships, but suffered an ankle injury mere months before Rio. At the time, he emblazoned his cast with Road to Tokyo 2020. Barshim would sustain a nearly identical injury in 2018. In the time since, they've both recovered, trained hard, and now find themselves here in this hot and humid open-air Tokyo stadium. Nearing the end of the competition, Barshim approaches the bar in a loping stride, slowly gaining speed and turning before leaping high into the air, twisting into the iconic Fosbury flop form before clearing the bar completely. The man just jumped over a bar more than 7.5 feet high. To be clear, that's 2.37 meters or 7 foot 9 inches, to be specific. Tamberi then warms up his push-off leg and bolts for the bar. His technique is the exact same as Barshim's. Speed up, turn, the peculiar flop. The bar wobbles slightly. He nicked it, but it doesn't fall. The Italian and Qatari jumpers are now the only ones who managed to make it this high, and thus their dreams of gold hang on jumping over a 2.39 meter high bar. Both get 3 tries to do so, but are ultimately unsuccessful. The referee begins to explain that they will have to take turns until someone is able to clear the jump, but in a moment that will surely be splashed over every major news source's headline, is immediately interrupted by, "Can we have 2 gold?" from Barshim. You see, Barshim and Tamberi originally met more than a decade prior, and had each supported and motivated each other through the mental and physical pain of their injuries, forming a true friendship and rivalry. They had even joked previous to the event about sharing Tokyo's gold. All it took was the referee's confirmation that it was allowed, a moment of eye contact, and a small nod between them, and the 2 friends were hugging, screaming, and sharing the world championship. So, there's the story. Ian, do you have any guesses for what physics principle features there we'll be talking about today?
It's such a heartwarming video to watch.
Oh, man. Yeah, actually, so we'll put a link in the description. There's a wonderful video, and we'll talk about it a bit more, that shows a really good example of our principle in action. It's delightful.
All right, let's see here. So when I think of the high jump, here's what I'm thinking. We've got to get some speed worked up, right? Mm-hmm. We've got to convert somehow. We've got to go from 0 speed in the vertical direction to some speed in the vertical direction
It's true.
without sacrificing all of that horizontal speed. But the the Fosbury flop is also so iconic that I can't help but feel like maybe somehow that's going to come into play here. So the first thing I thought was like, oh, it's a jump. So we're going to talk about, I don't know, cannons, explosives. Doesn't seem quite right, does it?
A little violent.
Somehow some kind of conversion of that of the Fosbury flop being useful in gaining height. Is that what we're going for here? So kind of angular momentum, angular velocity.
Oh man, you are so close.
Oh.
It's all right. You are right in that it is all about the Fosbury flop. That's why we're here today. But it's not angular momentum. It's not force. It's not momentum. We're actually talking about center of mass today, or center of gravity. You may have heard.
Okay.
So
that's a fun one.
and it's really interesting. Yeah. So first, center of mass, right? Center of gravity. It's a fairly straightforward concept. It's just, for any object, if you average out where all of its matter or mass lies around it, it has, in the average of all those, all that mass, a point in space that is typically at the center of the object. So you have an apple, center of mass of that apple is probably going to be in the middle of the apple. If you have a person that's standing straight, center of the mass is usually around the belly button, maybe a little lower, depending on the mass distribution around their body. So for most objects, that means pretty much in the dead center of the object. But some objects, it does not. So for example, a donut or a boomerang, both of those objects, center of mass actually lies outside of the object, right? So in a donut's case, the center of the object is actually inside the donut hole, right?
You're right.
And then the boomerang, because it's curved like that, the center of mass lies not inside of the actual bent part, but a little away from it, outside of the center of the boomerang's actual construction, which is pretty cool.
Right.
And this matters specifically for the high jump because if you push on an object with a force, maybe we'll talk about force in a later episode, the center of mass is the point that accelerates according to Newton's second law. So that's the thing that you're pushing with a force. The center of mass is the bit that's moving. Everything else moves around it, obviously. That's what makes the center of mass move. But that's the point that's actually, mathematically speaking, has to follow and obey Newton's second law. And so a given force, or technically, to be clear, technically it's an impulse, but whatever, can only move the center of mass of an object so high in the air before it falls back down. So if you kind of think ahead where I'm going here, if you have a center of mass that lies outside of the object, that means if your object is correctly oriented, you can actually push parts of that object higher than the center of mass goes. Does that make sense?
Say this again. So I can only push my center of mass a certain height, given a certain force, right? But if I move my center of mass outside of my body, right, I'm kind of manipulating the center of mass to maximize the change in height, I guess, in this case.
Yeah, that's the basic idea. And to be fair, this works with any object that has any three-dimensional space to it, right? If no matter what the object is, some of the object will be above the center of mass just by virtue of it taking up space, right? So like it's always the case that some part of the object will be higher than the center of mass.
Right.
But in the case, let's tie it back into the scene, right? These two
Let's bring it back.
Olympic gold winners, right? They're doing this Fosbury flop, which I learned first used by a guy named Fosbury. You never believe that.
I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, you didn't see that coming. In the 1968 Olympics, and ever since, literally in 1972, almost every single high jumper was doing it because it propelled him to the gold medal in 1968, and it was obviously superior. And it's all about exploiting that center of mass idea. So just like a boomerang, if you imagine, and you watch the video that is in the description because it's really amazing. There's even a scene that's they have a camera set looking along the bar they're jumping over, and you can see their body just wrap around the bar. It's really, really cool. But they're doing that basically when your body's bent like an upside down U, like they do when they're doing the Fosbury flop. The center of mass is below the top of the U. It's kind of, inside of the cup of the U, which in this case, the bottom of the U is the torso of the jumper. So even though the entire body of each jumper passes over the bar, their center of mass actually never has to go over the bar in order to do that.
Oh, come on.
Which is amazing.
What?
Which means with, any given jump, pre-Fosbury flop, that wasn't the case. So you could only ever jump over a bar that your center of mass could get over. Fosbury was like, oh, wait, I can get over a bar the same height with far less force.
Right.
And therefore, with the same force, you could go even higher. And that was the whole.
And that's
the
what
whole thing
propelled him.
Mm-hmm.
Literally to a higher podium.
Nice.
Thank
exactly.
you. I worked hard for that one.
I'm proud of you. So actually, if you go to the video, we'll put in there at the minute 20 mark, roughly. That's where you can see looking down the bar. It's pretty cool. You can see Tom Barry doing his jump. It's not the jump that the last jump he made. It's the one before that, but it's still really, really cool to watch.
What? I had no idea that is why the
I know
Fosbury flop was so important. I always just thought, oh yeah, no, look, they're just modifying their body so that they don't hit the bar. No, they're actually lowering their center of mass / center of gravity
outside their body
and below the bar. That's kind of mind-boggling to me.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. It's really amazing. And usually, I'm sure it's not always below the bar, right? But only for the very highest jumps they're making, right at their limit.
Right.
The center mass is at or below the bar. It's really, really cool.
That is very interesting.
Yeah. I did do high jump in high school.
You did?
I even made it over the bar at one single meet. It was very exciting.
Was it the flop? Was it because of the flop?
Oh, it was all the flop. It was not me. It was all the flop. It was cheating using physics is what it was. So Ian, with that in mind, do you have any real world cases where we see center of mass? And it doesn't have to be in this whole using it, exploiting it to like get over loops or things like that. But like center mass, it's pretty important in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, actually, I see one on my daily drive.
Oh, there we go.
I drive. I'm not sponsored, but if this company wants to sponsor us and provide
NASCAR?
me
We're doing NASCAR again?
a new CRV.
Oh, okay.
I drive a Honda CRV, and actually on my sun blocker, I think it's also a mirror that you could open up and do stuff with, but it's a sun blocker. It basically says this vehicle has a high rollover point.
Oh, that's not good.
Well, that's a tall vehicle. I mean, you can fit a lot of stuff in the back. But right, that's because the center of mass, the center of gravity, is raised up. So if you were to take certain turns at high speeds, because of the way that the car could tilt during a turn, you could bring the center of mass outside the body of the car, outside the wheelbase, and suddenly, since your center of mass is not being supported. by anything, right, your car could roll over. So that's one I see pretty regularly and have only been concerned about a handful of times when I took a turn, maybe a little too hot, a little too much speed.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example. That's kind of a really common one. And, a kind of an extension of that, that's kind of the more severe case, is those double-decker buses you see in, like, London and things like that. Yeah. They're purposefully weighted a lot, like, below the seats on the whole bottom. Mm-hmm. Just because if they didn't, there's a lot. I mean, especially when if there's a bunch of people only in the top section, which I feel like you want to be if it's not raining, right?
Well, it's London, so it's
it'll be
probably
pretty
raining.
unsafe. Yeah, well, but in the rare case where it isn't raining,
the 5 minutes of the day.
Exactly. It can be pretty dangerous. So they have to account for that, which is pretty cool.
Huh.
Another situation that's similar to that, a little more complicated. I don't really want to get into it too much, but for ships in the ocean, right? So they have a center of mass, which is as anything that has mass does, but it also has a thing called the center of buoyancy, and you want to keep. Let me see. I think you want to keep the center of buoyancy above the center of mass, I'm pretty sure, which keeps it stable so that every time it gets rocked, it'll rock back to being upright. So if your center of buoyancy ever goes the opposite direction you want it to be, anytime you get rocked, it'll try to basically capsize the entire ship, go upside down. Mm-hmm. So that's really, really critical for ships like that. So anytime a ship, like a shipping ship.
Great. Yeah.
Well done, Will. Yep. Anytime one of those ships has any cargo in them, they need to account for all the cargo to keep track of where their center of mass is. And because if you have either too little mass, right, your center of mass could go too high. So it's a very important thing for them. That's why they have ballast and things like that, tanks they can take water in and all that fun stuff.
And of course, there's the elephant in the room. That is the trapeze artist with 2 buckets of water on a big wooden stick, right? Held out on either side. You also see it with like slackliners. where basically, depending on where you hold your buckets of water or hold your arms, you can control which side of the rope or trapeze your center of mass lies on. So when you start to tilt one way, you would move the buckets of water a little more in the opposite direction to pull your center of mass back. So you're not throwing your body around so much, but you can control it just with your arms, right? Where above the line is your center of mass.
Oh, yeah.
So you're always trying to...
Or if you're Ian, that's not a problem. You just always keep your center of mass directly above the midpoint of the...
Yeah, when it comes to slacklining, I'm pretty much flawless. I haven't touched my slackline in 3 or 4 years, I think.
That's fair.
And there are any number, we could tie this even more back to sports. We can talk about football. A lot of football players want to keep their center of mass low when they are experiencing a confrontation with another player. You know, it tends to be the player with the lower center of mass is more stable and can withstand an impulse, if you will.
Hey, yeah. I mean, yeah, the higher your center of mass, the more toppleable you are.
Right.
You know? And here's a silly one we can end with. Those bird toy things, you know what I'm talking about, that like balance on their beaks. Have you seen that? Or it's like a little trick thing, or it looks like the bird is like totally off balance, like like the beak is touching almost its entire body is behind the beak, and somehow it's balancing on the beak, but they have their two wings kind of arcing around in front of it. You ever seen those things?
No.
Well, yeah. The funny thing is, you know, it looks like they should just fall over, and it's like, wow, how is that staying up? But you know, they just weight the tips of the wings that are in front of the beak enough to balance out the back of the bird.
Right.
They're kind of like novelty toys you get at like a Cracker Barrel or something.
That's where I go shopping for toys. And old-timey
I'm meeting
candy.
my nephew for the first time. Get him a Cracker Barrel. Get him a bottle of blueberry syrup.
Delicious.
You know, when I was a kid, slight aside, I had a bottle of blueberry syrup from Cracker Barrel. I was on a road trip with my dad and my grandpa, and it opened in my pocket.
It was not a good time. Pocket?
That's where syrup bottles go, obviously, when you're 9.
Syrup in their pocket.
Well, I don't do it anymore. That kind of taught me my lesson on that one.
Man, I bet that pocket was sticky forever.
We had to change. I threw those pants. You could not wear those anymore. It was. So, how about those audience questions? We got any of those?
Wait,
Ian?
do we need to wrap up our full pop culture scene?
I feel like we've wrapped.
We've got that. Our
Our
audience will ask us questions if they're confused, if they need more. Okay, sure. Well, we ended up with a few good questions. We're not going to cover all of them in one episode because we only have a few good questions.
We'll get more.
Yeah, as we blow up, this episode's going to be huge. So the first question that we're going to go with also was the first one asked from our friend at Amanda Please. And Amanda asks, is there any physics science behind the multiverse, which is the main focus of Phase 4 of the MCU? Minor spoiler alert. So, Will, what do you think? Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the multiverse.
Yeah, let's do it. So, great question, Amanda. Wonderful question. You know, pop culture often gets inundated with a lot of these, kind of interpretations that kind of get maybe a little out of control of some hard physics. But there is some genuine physicists out there that, yeah, they subscribe to a version of the multiverse. So the one I'm thinking of, there's probably more. I'm not a cosmologist by any stretch of the imagination, but there's an interpretation of quantum mechanics called the many worlds theory, which is pretty cool. So I won't get into all the quantum mumbo jumbo here, but essentially every time any quantum phenomenon takes place, the typical interpretation people use is called the Copenhagen interpretation. Called that because it was decided on by, I believe, Niels Bohr and some other people in Copenhagen. He was Danish. Which basically they posit that every time something is detected or measured or affected by anything in the world, it quote unquote collapses into the thing you observe. So, for example, in quantum mechanics, you have these things that are in quantum states. So you might have heard of quantum computers, where you have a qubit, right, where it's not just a 0 or a 1, but anywhere between 0 and 1. It's very, very cool. In a quantum computer, for example, when you measure it, it becomes either a 0 or a 1. It isn't either it's both beforehand, but when you measure it, it becomes a 0 or a 1. And that's how qubits work in a quantum computer. And so the Copenhagen interpretation is the idea that when you do that measurement, when the computer does that measurement, it decides 0 or 1, and that is what it is, and the other one just goes off and disappears and never happens at all. It only existed up until that point. The many worlds interpretation is not that. It's that every time that happens, every time something makes a quantum decision, quote unquote, both those things take place. So it was both a 1 and a 0, but we live in one of the two universes. You either live in the universe where it turned out to be a 0, or you live in the universe where it turned out to be a 1. And that happens for every single quantum interaction, of which there are quite a few, you can imagine. And so basically the many worlds theory is that there's infinitely many universes, that all of which one universe is generated every single time a split is generated every single time a quantum measurement takes place, which happens pretty much constantly. So infinite universes, pretty much. So not quite as exciting an interpretation as, say, the ending of Loki season 1 or anything like that. But
spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. But yeah, so there was some physics to it. There were certainly plenty of physicists who subscribed to that interpretation.
So Amanda, hopefully that answers your question sufficiently. The punchline was yes.
Yes. MCU Phase 4 is real.
Okay. Well, great. So that one question is what we get this week. I think that brings us sort of to the end of the content. Now we get into the plug zone, everyone's favorite section of a podcast. Where
plug zone,
plug zone, wherein your two co-hosts that you've been listening to beg of you, please share. If you like this podcast, share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with people you don't like as well. I was on a run today and I was like, hey, podcasts, we're sort of like a multi-level marketing thing where we just beg people to share us with people.
If you don't share this podcast to 10 people you know, you won't find $1,000 in your pocket tomorrow.
So that's why you should share us with people. We don't pay for any advertising. Word of mouth is the best we can hope for. If you liked this podcast, something that is apparently really helpful, but I wouldn't know, is I guess leaving reviews on Apple Podcasts can be good. Don't know how that works. Of course, you can find these episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the big ones, except for Google Podcasts, because I don't know how to list it there.
At least he's honest.
If you have any physics questions for Will, for myself, if you have any corrections for Will or for myself, please tweet at us at Podcast Frames. Again, we are pro-science, which sometimes means accepting when you're wrong about something, because that is A-OK.
It's kind of the only way to do it.
That's the only way to do it. Did I miss anything in the plug zone?
I think that's the entire plug
I feel like I did a lot of plugging.
Wait, new Twitter handle. Did we do that?
At Podcast Frames. You can also, I guess, follow us on Facebook, but I don't really know what to do with the Facebook page. So, okay. Will, do you want to say farewell to our intrepid listeners?
So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye. Hope you have a wonderful day. I'm not. I'm still recording.